Welcome to Foodwise. Hi, I'm Joey. In today's video, we'll be starting our journey towards food waste reduction by examining food systems. These videos were created thanks to the City of Ottawa's Community Environmental Project Program. So today we'll start by looking at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This pyramid here is something that I came across for the first time when I was taking a psychology class. And this might be something that you are already familiar with, but Maslow's hierarchy of needs really shows us what humans deem as essential for survival and to be able to thrive. We start off with our physiological needs at the very bottom of the pyramid. And those needs are identified as simply having food to eat, our basic need for sleep, and everything that our body physically needs in order to continue its cell cycle and to maintain basic survival. As we move up, we have things like safety, things like shelter, having a roof over your head. This also includes financial safety. That's another really important thing deemed in our society. As we continue up on the pyramid, we have things that are fairly nice to have, like love, belonging, sense of self esteem, and self actualization. So, being able to achieve things. As we look from the bottom to the top and the top to the bottom, one thing that we can clearly see is our most important need is really food. Yet, if we look at our local community, we see that from stats in 2023, 1 in 4 households in Ottawa experience food insecurity. So, this basic need of food is not being met. When we talk about food insecurity, we're not talking about only having simple access to food, but what it also means is consistent access to choices of food. These choices are things that meet our dietary preferences. Say, for example, if somebody has certain dietary needs because of a medical condition, or if somebody has allergies. It's just foods that we actually enjoy eating and foods that we would actually choose. To see that food is such a big importance, yet 1 in 4 households experience this kind of lack of consistency in being able to choose foods that they want, is a huge problem. Yet, according to Made in Canada, Canadians produce over 50 million tons of food waste annually. So, number one, food is essential to survival. Number two, in our local community, we see that many people are not afforded easy access to something that is so essential. Yet, we can see that Canadians are producing over 50 million tons of food waste. Let's look at this example. If we have 100 oranges that go to waste, how many of these oranges could we have saved? What percentage of this food waste is avoidable? 60%. 60% of food waste in Canada is actually avoidable. And out of the 60% that's avoidable, 50% is actually contributed by us, the households. When we talk about food waste, the conversation is usually very focused on the industry. While it is true that the industry does contribute a huge percentage, what is really surprising is that we as households, individuals, us as consumers, we are the ones who are contributing 50% of food waste. So let's look at food systems as a bigger picture here. How do we even get to the point where households would be able to contribute to any sort of food waste? When we talk about food systems as a whole, they either start large scale or small scale. There are different scales of food systems, and I'll talk about how we can get into different sizes of food systems. But a lot of food systems start with a farm where we have things that are produced, whether that be our fruits and vegetables or even our livestock. When we talk about packaging and processing, it's different for each and every item. Sometimes when people think of processed foods, they think of things like ultra processed foods, where we would add things like preservatives and additives, or where we would transform the product by cooking it, adding flavorings, and things like that. But packaging and processing could be something as simple as adding a sticker onto a banana and then tying a rubber band around the bunch. So, packaging and processing really varies from product to product. Then, distribution also changes based on the scale of the food system. So, when it comes to distribution, that can be from farm to table in a super small scale system. For example, when people go to their local farmers market down the street and they have bunched together some cherries. That's an example of small scale distribution. Distribution can also be as large as an international scale. For example, something like bananas that we can't really grow in Canada, that might be coming in from another country. Distribution really changes based on how far in distance the products have to travel before we can get access to them. And where are they being distributed? They're being distributed typically to retail, grocery stores, farmers markets, or anywhere that we can actually purchase these items. And those things that are being distributed and purchased, who are they being purchased by? Whether it be the industry, for example, restaurants, hotels, or even us as individual household consumers. So that's what we'll be focusing on for the rest of the video. What's really important to note is that when we're talking about food waste, we really want to distinguish between food waste and food loss, because these are two separate things that have fairly similar terminology. So, when we talk about food waste, it constitutes things that are preventable, such as when we go to the grocery store and we see that the apples might be a little bit bruised, or that certain things have spots on them and they're not really aesthetically pleasing. Those are the points where the retailers might actually want to toss them because it's not something that will really sell as well as something that's blemish free or spot free. Another way that we talk about food waste is even buying too much as a household. So, as households, we might see that if we're not planning properly, then we have foods that might go rotten before we even are able to cook them or use them. Those are things that get tossed at the end of the week and might even be caused by something like misinterpretation of best before dates, which is something that we'll be talking about in a future video. On the other hand, when we talk about food loss, these are more so mass losses that happen with food from time to time. For example, it can happen from improper storage temperatures in things like shipping trucks, or even something like a loss of crops because of some sort of infestation. It can also happen because of temperature changes that make us lose a whole bunch of crops. These kind of mass losses of food are not as preventable and not really based on any kind of individual level factors that can be changed or modified. So while it's important to know that this is a type of food loss, when we talk about food waste, we're focusing more on individually actionable steps. I hope today's video has been informative as the first step in your journey to reducing food waste. Before you watch the next video, I'd like you to consider the following questions. What are the impacts of food waste? Why is food waste such a big problem? Feel free to leave your answers in the comments below. We will be diving into some of the common answers to these questions in the next video. Thank you so much for learning about food waste reduction with me today. Bye for now.